The grasslands stretched endlessly beneath a sky bleached white by the midday sun. Heat shimmered in waves across the dry earth, distorting the horizon into something liquid and unreal. Maya had been driving for hours, following a tip from a local farmer about unusual activity near the southern edge of the reserve. Poachers had been spotted in the area days before, and the signs were never good. She parked her dusty Land Cruiser in the shade of a solitary acacia tree and stepped out into the suffocating heat, her boots crunching against the brittle grass. The air was still, heavy with silence, and she felt the familiar weight of dread settle in her chest. She had been doing this work long enough to know that silence in the wild often meant something had gone terribly wrong. She walked slowly, scanning the ground for tracks, for blood, for anything that might tell her what happened here. The sun pressed down on her shoulders, relentless and unforgiving. Her shirt clung to her back with sweat. Then she saw it, a small shape curled beneath a thorn bush, barely visible against the pale dirt. Her heart dropped. She approached cautiously, her breath catching as the shape took form. It was a cheetah cub, no more than a few weeks old, lying motionless in the shade. Its ribs pressed sharply against its spotted coat, and its eyes were half closed, dull with exhaustion and dehydration. There was no sign of the mother. Maya knelt slowly, her knees sinking into the hot sand, and reached out with trembling hands. The cub flinched weakly, a low rasping sound escaping its throat, but it was too weak to flee. Maya's mind raced. She knew the risks. A mother cheetah, if still alive, could be nearby and would attack to protect her young. But as she scanned the surrounding grassland, she saw no movement, no distant silhouette watching from the ridgeline. Only the wind stirring the dry grass. The cub's breathing was shallow, labored. It wouldn't survive another hour in this heat. Without water, Maya made her decision. She pulled a soft cloth from her backpack and gently wrapped it around the cub, murmuring softly as she lifted the tiny body into her arms. It weighed almost nothing. The cub's head lolled against her chest, and she felt the faint flutter of its heartbeat through the fabric. It was still alive. Barely dodged, she carried the cub back to the vehicle, moving quickly but carefully, her eyes constantly scanning the horizon. She placed the cub on the passenger seat, cushioned by blankets she kept for emergencies, and started the engine. The drive back to the sanctuary felt endless. She glanced over every few minutes, watching the rise and fall of the cub's shallow breathing, terrified it would stop. She whispered to it, though she wasn't sure why. Maybe because the silence felt too much like death. Maybe because she needed to believe it could hear her. When she finally pulled through the gates of the sanctuary, the sun was lower, casting long shadows across the compound. She carried the cub inside, her arms aching, and laid it gently on a padded table in the medical room. The hours that followed blurred together. Maya worked methodically, her hands steady despite the exhaustion creeping into her bones. She administered fluids through a subcutaneous drip, cleaned the cub's matted fur, checked for injuries. The cub barely responded, its body limp and unresisting. But as the fluids began to take effect, something shifted. Its breathing deepened. Its eyes flickered open, bright amber and alert, and fixed on Maya's face. She felt something tighten in her chest, a fragile, aching hope. She stayed with the cub through the night, sitting beside it on the floor, her back against the wall. Every hour she checked its vitals, offered formula for a bottle, spoke in low, soothing tones. The cub refused the bottle at first, turning its head away with weak defiance, but Maya was patient. She waited. She tried again. And finally, near dawn, the cub latched on and began to drink. Maya named her Amara. It meant eternal, enduring. She wasn't sure why the name felt right, only that it did. Over the following days, Amara grew stronger. Her eyes brightened, her movements became more purposeful, and she began to respond to Maya's presence with cautious curiosity. Maya fed her every few hours, cleaned her enclosure, sat with her in the quiet moments between tasks. She watched as Amara's personality began to emerge, playful, stubborn, fiercely independent even as a fragile infant. There was something humbling in it, something that reminded Maya why she had chosen this life. But even as the bond deepened, even as Amara began to trust her, Maya knew the truth. This was temporary. Amara was wild, and the wild was where she belonged. Maya's job was not to keep her but to prepare her, to give her a second chance at the life she was meant to live. And that meant, one day, letting her go. The thought sat heavy in Maya's heart, a quiet ache she carried even in the moments of joy, but she pushed it aside. For now, Amara was here, and that was enough.